Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn, and today we're back at it with podcast number 2. This is the second episode of my podcast, co-hosted by Brian Tinsman of Magic the Gathering and Wonders of the First, and so many great games over the years. Thanks for being here, Brian.
Howdy. Hey, everybody.
So, once again, we don't have a name for this podcast yet. We will soon. In fact, we might even come up with the name in person. We're going to be at SCG CON Orlando at the end of the month. We'll probably be filming episode 3 live in person there, and maybe we'll come up with the name on site together. But if you guys have ideas for names, definitely let me know in the comments. I'm really excited to keep doing these podcasts, really excited to have conversations with Brian. It's been very rewarding so far. We're going to dive into, we've got like 4 or 5 topics today, some interesting stuff. The first thing that I want to talk about with you, Brian, is this brand new set released for Magic the Gathering called Edge of Eternities. And they did something that they haven't really ever done in Magic before. They sort of dipped their toe into these ideas before, but they never went full in. And that's like an actual straight up sci-fi space set that's like a space opera style feel. And some people in the community think it might be them going a bridge too far with things that aren't close enough to traditional Magic, and some people think that it's a welcome breath of fresh air. But before we check out the cards, I'm curious what your thoughts are, just kind of like overall surface level, the concept of something like this happening in a game of Magic, like Magic the Gathering.
I mean, I'm generally a fan of trying new and weird stuff, and they've never done anything like this before. So it's awesome that they are kind of, expanding their flexibility of what they're willing to do with their world and IP. And like, look, take a few risks. That's how you find new favorites and get hits. You also get some duds, right? I don't think anybody liked, the kids in blue jeans and sneakers with the horror themes, but you won't know if you don't try.
For sure, absolutely. I think it's just really interesting that they went here. I'm a super huge fan of sci-fi in general. But like, I can kind of see both sides. Like, I'm really excited about the prospect of new design space and new feels and new tones. But at the same time, it's like, I can understand just your fantasy game, wanting it to be your fantasy game. When you think about Magic the Gathering, do you think of it more so as from a mechanical standpoint or from a flavor standpoint? Like, what do you think of first? Like, do you think it's more important that people focus on the mechanics, or and it's less important that Magic is straying a little bit tonally? Or do you think that fantasy flavor is a key part to the formula?
The themes and flavor are what you interface with first. Any person makes their decision based on that, and then they look to see if the mechanics match up and support those themes, and B, are those mechanics exciting and cool and provide a fresh play experience. So the themes are for acquisition and the mechanics are for retention in some place. If you look at it that way. Yes.
I think it's smart in general for games to sort of pursue this line. Once you have a game that people are confident enough in mechanically that they've been playing, I think it probably makes sense to try and use new hooks to try to bring in new people, knowing that the foundation of the game is so strong that you're not going to necessarily lose people that aren't interested in those new hooks. So I can definitely see where the thought process is coming from for sure. But let's take a look at a few of these cards and just get your opinions on them from a mechanical standpoint and a flavor standpoint. I want to look first at Dawnsire Sunstar Dreadnought. So this is a 5-cost legendary artifact spacecraft, and it has the station ability. The station ability is very similar to Crew, except instead of tapping a creature to turn it into a creature until end of turn, you're tapping a creature to add charge counters to this card equal to the power of the creature. And then once you get to so many charge counters, it can turn on abilities or turn into a creature or whatever the case may be. So it's a bigger initial investment at first to get it to even become a creature, but then once it is forever, so you get that bigger payoff at the end. This one in particular, when it gets to 10 plus charge counters, it is not a creature yet, but it turns on an ability where whenever you attack, it deals 100 damage to up to one target creature or planeswalker. And then if it does get to 20 plus charge counters, it becomes a 20/20 flyer. How are you feeling about this card?
It's a cool concept. It's something weird and different. I have memories of trying to get the level up mechanic through the approval process with Rise of the Eldrazi, where it had 3 different tiers of abilities that would turn on, and it was pulling teeth to get that through. And so later generations can benefit from my struggles in doing weird frames.
Absolutely. I definitely feel like this is a leveled up version of leveled up. Pardon the pun. But like the big difference here over level up is instead of committing your mana to get this to where you want to be, you're still using your mana to play your creatures and not really be slowed down on that kind of tempo, but you have to commit those creatures to, you know, putting charge counters on this and stationing it up. So it's a little bit more forgiving than level up because, you know, you still get to play the things you probably want to play anyway, but it also takes a heck of an investment.
Yeah, I think you could do exciting cards like this. More like there's more cool, exciting, station cards than there are level up cards for sure. So like it's an improvement on that lineage. Station, I think it's not a total slam dunk in terms of flavor, but I think it's pretty awesome that you can get in a situation where I've got a 4 or a 5 cost dude that, like, I still don't really want to attack with it because it's just going to get, chumped or something like that. But I get a benefit from that when it has a high power. So I can do things like pump its power and then take advantage of that power pump. It's pretty cool.
One thing I've noticed playing Limited, the station cards, is people kind of have to relearn what they know about Magic, because in order to get the most out of these cards, you have to station them up like almost immediately, and you have to usually put yourself at a tempo loss and risk of taking damage from the opponent in order to make that happen. But in a lot of the games that I've played, at least of Limited, the people that didn't station their stuff right away end up regretting it way later on. And there have been times where I've stationed my stuff right away and my opponent thinks it's a mistake because my defenses are down, they're swinging in, they're getting in for damage. But then all of a sudden, I get my spacecraft stationed into a creature, and then I tap that to station another one, and it becomes a creature, and all of a sudden, I have this huge board presence and all of this value, and now they just can't push through. So it's interesting what I've noticed in Limited play, where it seems to rewrite what feels right and wrong in Magic players' brains, because you really have to force yourself into a situation where you have this big tempo loss for a huge payoff later on down the line. And it feels wrong most of the time, but usually it ends up working out, and I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, there's kind of like a super foundational strategic decision in Magic with investing in a unit on the board, meaning I've got a grizzly bear, and I want to attack with it, and I want to giant growth it, and if my opponent can shock my grizzly bear before my giant growth resolves, he's 2 for 1 to me, right? So I'm trying to guess, does he have some removal in there that's gonna wreck me? Do I hold back my giant growth? Like this highlights that same sort of like foundational situation of, do I want to take some damage? Do I want to invest a lot in this because I'm gonna swing with this huge thing? If I do that and he has removal up and takes it out, like it's just a bigger version of that basic grizzly bear giant growth.
Absolutely. Yeah. Pretty interesting. We're going to move on to Sammy Wildcat Captain. This is a 4/4 legendary human artificer rogue for 6 mana, 1 white, 1 red, and 4. He's got double strike, vigilance, and spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. How do you feel about affinity for artifacts coming back to being standard legal?
Wow. So I have not seen this card before. I'm legitimately looking at it for the first time, and it seems super amazing. Like you're going to be like chaining card draw spells to fill your hand if you have access to blue with this on the board. If you make this into a commander, you don't get the same kind of crazy card draw. Maybe you get like red wheels and things like that. So like if this had blue in its identity, it would be a different story.
Right.
But yeah, damn, it seems scary to me.
The one thing I will point out is, power creep is a hell of a drug. And with power creep these days, 6 mana is a lot in standard for a Magic card. That being said, obviously, if you build your deck right and you've, curved out with a bunch of artifacts and all of a sudden you slam this on 6, theoretically a bunch of stuff in your hand is all of a sudden free. And that could be really terrifying. I haven't built a deck with this card yet, but I've kind of had my eye on it. I feel like it could be insanely powerful, but I also worry it could just, require too many hoops to jump through. And if you don't get all the right things at the right time, 6 mana is a lot. 6 mana is a lot, but affinity being back in standard is terrifying for sure.
Yeah, it could lose double strike and vigilance and not have its power reduced very much.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just that line of text is enough. The next card I want to talk about is Uthros Titanic Godcore. Now, you were around for the Urza's Saga set, right, Brian? Well, this is a land, a planet. It enters tapped. It is not legendary. It taps for 1 blue. And there is a cycle of lands in this set that station like the spacecraft. They're the only cards in the whole set that aren't spacecraft that can station, and there's one for each color. This is the blue one. If it gets stationed up to 12 plus charge counters, it turns on an ability which essentially turns it into Tolarian Academy. How do you feel about that? Do you think this is too powerful? Tolarian Academy in standard seems nuts. But committing 12 power is a lot, so maybe not.
Yeah, I'm salty. I have a stack of Tolarian Academies in near mint, and they're never going to be unbanned. So
never.
It's nice that they're creeping towards them, anyways.
I think requiring 12 power before you get your Tolarian Academy online is a decent job at balancing a card like that. It makes you have to build it differently. Like, you have to use creatures in order to use this. So you can't play like a creatureless artifact deck unless you have some other way. I guess theoretically you could add like 1 charge counter with like a 1/1, and then you could use a whole bunch of proliferate. But I think for the most part, realistically, it's a Tolarian Academy that can only be run in creature decks. And I think maybe that balances it. Maybe?
Yeah. I mean, it makes you think about, like, why haven't they done more nerfed Tolarian Academies over the last 20 years? And, I sort of feel like this take highlights one of the problems in that it encourages more defensive play. Like, let me sit here and turtle up and build on my resources, sort of battle cruiser strategy, right? And then once I get all of my power-ups ready, I have an overwhelming victory. And like, that's okay as long as it's not dominating the meta. It's a big problem if there's no action, the whole board is locked down, it's not fun, everything gets countered. So as long as you can make decks like that, like 10% of the meta, 20% of the meta, that's cool. leads to, you know, interesting variety of strategies.
Right.
So it's a very fine line to balance the power of these kinds of things.
The other way you could look at it, instead of turtling up, is that you could play this very recklessly and just tap all of your creatures every turn to get it stationed quick and put all of your defenses down and take a bunch of hits from your opponent just to try to get there. So there are definitely two lines, but either way, it does take a hefty commitment. And I'm interested in your thoughts of, like, when you see, like, newer versions of older cards, you know, being involved in Magic back during those days when a lot of those newer cards, or, you know, were coming out for the first time. How do you feel about cards like this when you know, it's a new take on an old card? Does that make you nostalgic or sentimental? Do you get upset that the old cards are, you know, being replaced or something, or are you excited that they're trying to make them work in a new environment?
Yeah, I think it's nice. Like 𝐒�RRAN Academy is a great example because it's a exciting, powerful card, but you know, the balance was not right, and it does not serve any useful purpose right now, right? Except as like a collectible. So, and look, try anything you want over 20 years. Like the game needs fresh takes on on old things. Certainly, like all the doubling triggered effects is an example of taking it too far. Like there's been so many build-arounds of you know, double every kind of triggered effect that you could possibly imagine. I don't like it when it's taken that far.
Yeah,
because it makes it not special. But like when you try to improve it, make it a little more balanced, give it a role, give it something to do in a nuanced way, that's awesome.
Triggered effects already feel like free spells in a way, so getting to amplify the number of free spells does seem kind of crazy. I agree with that. The last card I want to check out really quick here is 𝐼𝐴 Stonechosen.
You're not going to comment on Land Dash Planet? That's the other thing that I'm like,
I don't want to think about Land Dash Planet. That's wild.
It's one land, and it's a planet. Like, there's mountains on that planet. There's islands on that planet.
Well, I think within the lore, the idea is each of these planets is one biome, is literally just the same kind of biome across the entire planet, and that's kind of like what they're going with. I do think it's interesting that Magic's newest set has some sci-fi vibes, and it's about five or six of these planets that orbit another big circular object that is the centerpiece of the story. And I could see a lot of parallels being drawn to Wonders of the First, which is the latest game that you've created, which I've been playing the heck out of. I love that game. I do think it's interesting. A lot of stuff in this set seems to draw parallels to Wonders of the First, and I kind of smirked when I realized that.
Yeah. I probably would go with Land Dash Planet 2 in a sci-fi set if I was on the design team here. But just think about when you Stone Rain, I destroy the planet. That's
crazy.
And something you couldn't do before. Point. That's a big Stone Rain.
A lot of people also kind of complain that this isn't legendary from a flavor perspective. It has a name, so why isn't it legendary?
Yeah, good point.
And I can definitely understand it from a mechanical, point of view. Is like they want it to actually see use. It's more likely to see use and be viable in tournament level decks if it's not legendary. But that's where you see kind of like that thin line between, mechanically being good enough and lore-wise it working out. But this last card here, 𝐼𝐴 Stonechosen, I saw this and I immediately thought of you because I thought of old school Magic. So this is a 3/3 legendary human cleric for 5 mana, 2 black and 3. Has a void ability. Void abilities mean that if anything at all leaves the battlefield that turn, or if something was warped that turn, you trigger the void ability. In this case, the void ability that turns on is defending player loses half their life rounded up when he attacks. And it's probably worth it to just touch on Warp a little bit here too before we finish talking about this card. Warp is a new ability in this set where you pay a lesser amount of mana. The card comes out onto the battlefield, stays there until end of turn, and at end of turn it gets exiled, and it can then later be played from exile like an adventure creature. So it's sort of like a mix between Evoke and adventure creatures, where you can like get these Evoke abilities, but the creature doesn't stick around, similar to Evoke, because a lot of the creatures that have Warp have like something that triggers on entering or on leaving. But then you just get to play the thing from exile later and get more value and keep the creature and, you know, probably re-trigger that Evoke style ability again. And we don't have one of those cards to look at today, but it is an interesting mechanic, and Void lets you trigger when that mechanic is used, or if any non-land permanent leaves the battlefield. But the part of this card that really interests me, that I want your opinion on, is this ward cost. Ward, discard a card at random. Now that brings me back to Hymn to Torok. I don't remember random discards being a thing in Magic since Hymn to Torok, because I'm pretty sure you guys figured out pretty quickly how powerful Hymn to Torok is and how powerful random discard is, and Wizards has stayed away from that for a very long time. So I guess my first question is, was it Hymn to Torok the last time we've seen random discard? And how do you feel about random discard being back in Magic?
No, I'm pretty sure there's been like coercion, or there's been some other random discard spells since. Yeah, it reminds me of Hypnotic Spectre. I think it's cool, and it's fun to do. Like it's a little bit of a gamble mechanic for the person who's using it. Like, am I going to get something good or bad from your hand? I think there's feel bad that happens with it because of that RNG element, right? Like, oh, if you had picked this card, I would have won. And so it's like, you know, losing to a coin flip to some people.
Right.
But yeah, I'm glad to see it come back.
I think it really messes with psychology of players during play, because if you've got removal and you want to get rid of this guy, you're like, but I might have to discard my most important card that I absolutely need to play next turn. Maybe it makes players second guess using the removal. I feel like it just has interesting implications psychologically when you're playing against your opponent and can play mind games with this discard a card at random. I thought that was really interesting about it.
Yeah, and if you pair this with other hand destruction, like they just have one card and, you know, one piece of removal, sucks to be you. You just can't touch them, right? Yeah,
true. Ward discard a card's always been good, but Ward discard a card at random is just this whole other this whole other crazy mind trip of like second guessing yourself and not knowing, I'll just throw down another chump blocker because I'm so scared of losing, you know, my most important card or whatever. I feel like it definitely sets up some very interesting possibilities with psychological implications, if you will.
Yeah.
I just thought it was really interesting. But anyway, with Edge of Eternities out of the way, let's touch base with you were just recently at Gen Con. Gen Con just happened in Indiana. I believe it's Indiana.
Yeah.
Indianapolis. And you showed up with Wonders of the First, and from what I can gather, seeing some posts online, it looks like you had a really good time and a really good turnout. So, how was Gen Con for you?
It was a great Gen Con. Gen Con just has a good positive vibe to it. Everybody is there to play games. You know, a lot of other shows, people are there to like go to talks or, you know, meet celebrities or whatever. But this, like, the people who come to it just want to come and hang out and play games. And Wonders of the First was received super well, and we had table space for learn to play events and, you know, testing and demos and you know, meet the fans. And we had a lot of people coming and playing, and just like they had a great time. And you watch a lot of the other tables where people come and they play a game and they get up and leave, but people wanted to stick around. They want to deconstruct their decks. We had a fan come and drop off a large box of commons just to have souvenirs, and so the people who wanted to dug into that and modified their decks, and because we just had the starter decks, and so they swapped in and out to try new cards. So people might say they like the game, but their actions are what you really pay attention to. So I was just overjoyed.
Well, I definitely saw a bunch of pictures, and it looked like you had full tables for days in some of the photo updates that I saw, and I was just smiling ear to ear. Most of you guys watching this know that I've been playing this game for about a year now, and I'm absolutely in love with it. And I can't wait to see where it goes and what the future holds. So any opportunity to see it do well and be exposed to a bunch of new people, and get more people excited about the game and knowing that the game exists gets me really excited. So every time I saw an update posted, a photo of a full table or whatever, I was just smiling ear to ear. But
there's been a cultural shift with trading card games too. Like, when I went to Gen Con in the early 2000s, it was mostly college age or professional guys.
Right.
And then I would go to like Essenspiel in Germany, and it's like families and women, much more so. And it was kind of surprising, like, wow, this is a different. But Gen Con has shifted to be much more like that. Now there's people of all different kinds come in and willing, and it's like learning a trading card game or getting into it is not as intimidating or nerdy as it used to be. I think it's much more like you see it every time you walk into the Target or something, or Walmart, and it's a much more normal thing.
Yep. It's very exciting to me. Like you said, actions speak louder than words, and that's the one thing I've seen about Wonders that I've noticed at other events and stuff is, like, if somebody plays a game, they leave loving the game. Like, I haven't seen a single person finish a game of Wonders of the First and be like, nah, not for me. I haven't seen that once, and I don't know if that's just like a bias on my end or just like that, just luck. Have you experienced anything similar? It seems like everyone that played it at Gen Con, like you said, was having a great time.
No, I haven't seen that either. I've seen people criticize aspects about, like, why does it work this way? I would make it so that flying triggers immediately instead of end of battle, but that just means that they like it so much they're already trying to improve it, right? They're investing their thoughts into it. So
exactly. I think one of the benefits of this game too is the fact that it is similar to other games, surface level in a lot of ways, that it's kind of easier to learn for anyone that's played other card games. But at the same time, it's way deeper than you realize at first, in ways that are so different to other card games. So it's easier to pull people in and get them to learn the game and have them go, oh, this is just like X, Y, or Z. But then by the time they finish the game, they're like, whoa, this is way different than X, Y, or Z. I think that's both of those things working in tandem is a huge strength of the game. And it seems like people were seeing that at Gen Con. If they were wanting to swap cards out right away and play again and use all those different commons that were available. That's interesting to hear. I didn't know that was happening, and that's pretty exciting. I also have a box of commons and uncommons that I've just been hoarding away, so that when I run events up here, I can, let people kind of have at them and build decks and just kind of go nuts and have fun. So it's really cool to hear that was happening at Gen Con. I didn't expect that, but that's awesome.
Yeah, the layout of the game is kind of different from a lot of other games where you're just like attacking someone's life total or something like that. So people get like curious. They see the stones laid out on the board, and they see that it's like a set number of rounds, and they get kind of, drawn in by that. At some point, we're going to make some really amazing stones that are sculpted or, have different materials, and that'll be even more fun.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that a lot of other games are try to end the game as soon as possible. You win by ending the game for your opponent. And Wonders doesn't do that. Wonders is like, no, play the long game. Or I should say the mid game, because it's perfectly designed to last the perfect length. But you want to play for the overall entirety of the game for what's best, and you're not playing to reduce a health total or to, kick your opponent out of the game as quick as possible or anything like that. And it's just, it makes you think differently, and I think it's really, really refreshing. So, very, very cool. Yeah. There is another event coming up for Wonders. Before we dive into that, I want to briefly touch on this Spider-Man set. Just ever so briefly, that's coming out for Magic. There was a card spoiled, the Soul Stone, which I think is going to turn Commander on its head specifically, that I want to talk about. Before we dig into that card, I would just like your overall thoughts on the idea of Spider-Man in Magic the Gathering and these crazy IP coming to Universes Beyond for Magic the Gathering in general, and just kind of like what your thoughts are on that, just broadly.
So, Universes Beyond, like, has pros and cons like anything else, but if you zoom way out, like, people love it, right? They want it and they're excited about it. And so anytime you can get an IP that has a dedicated fan base and gets excited, you bring more people potentially into the game, which is, it's good for everyone. It's more players. I think probably it does make the Magic kind of core Magic not the same as it used to be, and there's an opportunity to have, like, how Commander decks have like tier 1, tier 3, like, you could also do that with IP environments and be like, okay, this is core Magic only. This format we play with anything from any media property, like probably headed in that direction at some point. But
that's kind of the sentiment that I hear from a lot of Magic players, is that they don't necessarily mind them existing, but it would be nice if there were options for just strictly Magic IP or formats that involve all of the Universes Beyond stuff.
Yeah, so this is literally a job interview question that we used to ask potential game developers. What would you do if you had to make an MMO, Spider-Man MMO or James Bond MMO? And the problem that you've got to address is, like, you play a Spider-Man MMO because you want to be Spider-Man. But if everybody's running around being Spider-Man, then Spider-Man's not special. And so maybe you get to be Spider-Man's buddy or, some random version, but that's not satisfying. That's not why you bought the Spider-Man MMO. So right. You can kind of see that playing out a bit in the Spider-Man Magic set. Like, there's a whole bunch of Spider-Man, there's a whole bunch of versions that are not quite Spider-Man, but there's Spider-Gwen and stuff, and all of that is taken from the comics, so it has legitimacy.
Right.
But it still is a difficult issue.
For sure. The one thing that I've heard from players who aren't super thrilled about the Spider-Man set is that they don't necessarily think it's cool to have cards that seem like that you have to play them. Like, they're staples that you absolutely need to have from an IP that maybe they don't gel with. And that kind of segues into this card that we're going to look at, the Soul Stone. This might just turn Commander on its head. So this is a legendary artifact, Infinity Stone, which is actually a card type now, Infinity Stone. 1 black and 1, indestructible, does not enter tapped, taps for a black mana. So super cheap mana rock. Pay 1 black and 6, tap it, exile a creature you control to harness the Soul Stone. Once harnessed, its Infinity ability becomes active. And the Infinity ability is, at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And the talk that I've seen making the rounds in the Magic community is simply this. Every single commander deck that runs black from now until the end of time will play this card. It is a must-own, must-play card. And without taking that into context, I think it's an interesting card. I think it is really kind of crazy and represents, how powerful these Infinity Stones are supposed to be in the lore. But then thinking about something from a Universes Beyond IP being so crucial to every commander deck under the sun is like a whole nother thing. So I'm curious what your thoughts are first, just as a card in general, mechanically, how you feel about it, flavor-wise. But then after that, what your thoughts are on some of those implications.
Yeah, there's almost no downside. One black pip is the downside compared to typical mana rocks and coming in untapped and indestructible, plus a powerful ability for the mid or late game. It's very power creepish. I do like that it sets up an expectation, like this is a setup and then you're going to have a payoff in future sets to get the other Infinity Stones. That's like a cool little quest.
I love that aspect of it for sure, and it definitely seems like there would also be some kind of Infinity Gauntlet payoff where, like, if you have multiple Infinity Stones, there's some kind of bigger effect you get access to. Like, there's a lot of unlimited potential for where you could take this design space from both a lore perspective and a mechanic perspective, and I love that aspect of the card. I think it's really cool that in the type line you have Infinity Stone, and that just makes your imagination completely go off the rails.
Players get to speculate, okay, what is the white one going to do? What does the green one get to do? And then when it comes out, you'll say, like, I knew it, I was right.
And that's the best, man. When you have sets come out with cards like that get you so excited about speculating about what's coming down the line, they give you just enough information that you know something crazy is coming, but you don't exactly know what, and you can speculate about it. I mean, I think that's what gets people, just in card games in general, not even just Magic, but gets people really excited from set to set to set. There's a little bit of that in Wonders of the First that's got me kind of teased for what's coming down the line, and I'm hoping more stuff like that pops up as more sets are released for that game, because I think that as a concept, like seeding these teases towards the future, is a really strong concept.
Yeah, it does have strong power creep element to it, which is kind of makes me shake my head a bit. But in terms of Commander, like there's already a kind of a culture in Commander of don't optimize your deck. So like if everybody else is playing this and you don't play it, it's not like you're an idiot. It's that's a choice you can make. And
right.
There's been times in Commander when I get a Soul Ring in my opening draw and I don't play it until turn 3 or 4 because I don't want to get targeted by the table, right? So like there's the social aspect of Commander makes it power creep less painful than it used to be.
For sure. I think there's so much that I love about this card, from a flavor perspective, from a setting up expectations for the future perspective. I wish all of that came in a card that wasn't locked in a Universes Beyond set, because I wish the entire community could get excited about some of the implications of this, instead of like half the community that doesn't gel with the IP kind of being bummed that it's, they have to go get this card in an IP they don't necessarily enjoy.
Yeah, so, that's true.
I think the pros outweigh the cons. I'm excited the card exists, but I can see the other side of it for sure, and it stinks. I wish everybody could kind of be excited about this the way people that like the IP will be. Yeah,
and it also kind of sets up a situation where Wizards saves their strongest mechanics for the Universes Beyond sets, because they know those things can like blow the hell out, right? Those are the best selling sets ever. So
that's the word.
They won't have as many like super strong cards like this in their original worlds.
That's definitely the worry from a lot of players, especially longtime players that were in the game for the game and not necessarily for other IPs. And I mean, it is what it is. At the end of the day, it's there's pros and cons that are going to come with every single Universes Beyond set, and that's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. But I'm really interested to see how it shakes out in the long term for Wizards. I'm really worried that they're going to lose a lot of their older player base the more they're getting deeper into these other IP. And will they be bringing in enough fresh blood to cancel that out? It's hard to say. But I'm hoping a lot.
No. If you're not a fan of the Universes Beyond type of things, and then a whole bunch of super strong cards come out and start to obsolete the stuff that you like from old school Magic, like, yeah, that's a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, but I mean, fingers crossed. Hopefully it'll work out. Hopefully, like I said, the lore and design implications of something like this and setting those expectations for future sets is really interesting and really cool. Like, that as a concept, I absolutely adore. And it really just gets your imagination wandering, which is cool. So I hope they don't go overboard, and I hope it works out in the end. Now, speaking of sets, there is a set 2 that you're working on for Wonders of the First, which I'm really excited about. And I just want to briefly ask you, I think you've been pulled into some design meetings lately. Is that to finish up some set 2 stuff, or is that you working on sets after set 2?
We are working on sets after set 2. I have been doing revisions to the comprehensive rules. We have a great playtest team that is like pulling out these weird corner cases and having discussions about how much we have to explicitly call out definitions and things like that. And we revised the combat steps into distinct steps, which before, when you had triggered effects, you could just like stack them however you wanted to, or the person taking the active turn got to put them in any order they want. So we made it clearer how that all works now. So that was a good change. But we needed that because we're going to have Star City Game Con, 4 of them happening this year. So we want the judges to have the best version of the rules that they can.
One thing that I encountered recently, actually, that just reminded me, is the way triggers stack up for on attack, on defense, and on battle. And I'm sure they trigger in that order, or do they resolve in that order, or is it both?
So in the current version of the rules, they all happen together. But we're moving to rules version 1.2, in which they each have their own trigger step, and trigger resolve on attack, trigger and resolve on defense, trigger and resolve on battle, trigger and resolve check for victory, and then
But do they all trigger at the same time? My case in point is there is a wonder that on attack gets to move an equipment to herself, and the bow on battle gets to trigger its abilities and do all sorts of crazy stuff, draw cards and everything. So if they all trigger at once, you don't get the bow trigger. But if they all trigger separately, you could trigger your on attack with the wonder, move the bow to that wonder, and then get to on battle trigger, and the on battle of the bow will trigger and you'll get all your value.
Yeah, that's how it works in 1.2.
That's crazy. So the triggers actually happen separately, not just the resolutions.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's crazy. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm leaning towards good, but I have to wrap my mind around that. That's really nuts. I'm looking forward to set 2. I know you guys are still hammering away on that. I don't want to go too overboard talking about set 2 right now. I'm more interested in, we just got an announcement from Frenchie that the play boosters are coming super quick. I think next week or the week after. And are you excited about play boosters? Because I'm excited about play boosters because, you know, limited is going to be a lot easier to participate in, to even just do yourself. Just go to a store, grab some boosters, and do the thing. And I'm excited about limited. I'm really excited about limited. So I think play boosters are going to open that up, and I'm just curious where your head's at now that play boosters.
I should have talked about this at Gen Con too. Like, we had a bunch of people who were excited about the game, and then where do I get it? And we had to tell them, oh, sorry, we're sold out. You have to get it from flippers on eBay who price the boxes at $300 or $400, and
right.
So the product is essentially unavailable unless you're swimming in money. And so play boosters going to solve that problem. We're going to have something to offer the new people.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it, and I'm really excited about just like completing full paper sets of cards and having my collection and being able to pivot and build decks for constructed and the competitive play season, which is coming up. I do want to point out really quick though, even though play boosters aren't available yet, they'll be available in a couple weeks, and most everything is sold out. Target does still have bundles, so anyone that's interested in checking out the game and giving it a try, you can go to Target and pick up a bundle, most locations, or at the very least order it online off their stores. So if you want to grab bundles and get a sneak peek at the game and learn how to play, definitely head to Target and grab those. I feel like I pick up a new bundle at Target like every week because there's like a new friend that really wants to play, and I always feel like I want to get a new bundle and play with the new bundle with them so they can just keep it afterwards. I don't know if that's just a me thing, but I get really excited when people want to learn how to play the game. But we do have SCG CON Orlando coming up, which is going to be the start of the competitive play tour for Wonders of the First, and I'm incredibly excited about this. I don't know, maybe I'm too excited, but competitive play tour, we've got 4 dates this year alone, starting in Orlando the last weekend of August. We're going to have Baltimore and Houston in October. We're going to have the World Championships in Vegas in November. I'm going to be at all of those. You're going to be at not all of them, but most of them. And it's been making me think back to Magic the Gathering's first Pro Tour and the way competitive play felt way back in the beginning. And I don't know how much you were able to sort of witness back in the day for that, how close you were to it. But I remember it pretty fondly because hometown hero Sean the Hammer Rayner was the guy that won the first Pro Tour. He's from my state, New Hampshire. And the first store that I ever went to regularly and did regular tournaments every Friday night in Magic was his shop that he opened with his prize money that he won from the Pro Tour. So I may have never gotten as deep into Magic if he hadn't won the Pro Tour. And the biggest thing that I remember about that first Pro Tour and about Sean the Hammer Rayner is just how fresh everything was and how no one had the environment solved. Nobody had the game solved. If you compare the caliber of player at that first Pro Tour to the caliber of players that the Pro Tour had, you know, in the 30 years following, like, very, very stark difference. Those first players, they did not have all of the answers. They were nowhere near as good as players ended up being later on. And I kind of feel like that's exciting when a game is that fresh and new and people are still figuring it out. And that's how I feel about Wonders of the First right now. So I've been thinking a lot about that first Pro Tour and about how Wonders is headed into starting its first competitive play tour here. And it feels like I'm in on the ground floor in an exciting way, the way I got to see Hammer be a part of things back during the first Magic Pro Tour. And I'm wondering, like, have you thought about that at all? Did you witness any of that first Pro Tour at all? And, like, kind of like what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I was just starting at the company when the Pro Tour was getting spun up, and there was no internet, no streaming. I mean, it wasn't widespread, and so I had to have photos and articles in Scry magazine and Inquest magazine for most people to learn about it. And, it was largely driven by Scaphalias, and he sort of based it on chess tournaments, but really they were starting with no experience in how to do a TCG style tournament at a high level. So it's amazing that they were able to pull it off so well. And then now here we are in 2025, and it's very well understood. The events run smoothly. They have well-trained judges. They know what kinds of complications can happen. So I feel super lucky to be able to jump in. Like, our game hasn't even been out a year, and we have high-level tournaments. And of course, it's awesome that the game holds up really well to competitive and casual play. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, from 0 to 100 miles an hour in a short time.
Yeah, I'm really excited because I feel like the game's in a spot where people are still trying to figure it out, figure out where the value lies, and figure out like what the strongest meta is and all of that. And I feel like it's kind of anyone's game to a certain extent. There are definitely a handful of players that are well above the rest, but I feel like most anyone, if they're good at card games, they can learn Wonders of the First, and if they just dedicate some time to really kind of learning the nuances, they could actually stand a chance and compete in this competitive play tour more so than they might be able to a few years from now if the player base grows and everyone gets everything figured out and the meta really solidifies. I expect things to get way more competitive in the next few years, but right now it feels like ground floor. Like, who knows what's going to happen? Some person you've never heard of could show up and end up winning the whole day with something you didn't think of. I just think that's super exciting. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. I think Wonders probably has more gameplay skill impact than a lot of other TCGs. And so, like, picking the right deck for the meta is a little less important than making the right choices of where and how to play.
That's the beauty of the game, having 7 realms. I talked about this a little bit in my video the other day about sideboards, about how I think sideboards are less necessary in a game like Wonders of the First because of 2 different things. First of all, you have different realms. So the vast majority of bomby plays you could make that you would normally want a sideboard answer to are probably only going to affect one realm. And you can just give up on that realm and pivot and try to worry about other realms. And so it doesn't feel as bomby as other games might. And then also the fact that there's no in response in Wonders means that everything is telegraphed. Everything. There's no surprise out of nowhere like, oh, now you can't do anything. You see everything coming. And the example I used in that sideboard video was Omnis Quantum. Even if you wait until your last action of round 6 to play an Omnis Quantum, which at the beginning of round 7 is going to ascend and, choose odd or even, and your opponent can't play cards of that cost. You could even roll that into Lunar Empowerment as a combo to make it ascend again with your first action on round 7 and make your opponent not be able to play anything at all. But you always have the option to stop that if you're smart enough to get in front of it, because it is always telegraphed. Best case scenario, they play Omnis Quantum, their very last action, on round 6, after you're out of actions. All you need is an untapped land and a removal piece in your hand that you've been smart enough to sit on with enough energy to play in case something crazy happened. And, you stop it. So I feel like, because everything is telegraphed, because there's no instant speed in response, out of nowhere, you didn't see it coming, boom, it's too late. There's none of that. Mm-hmm. And you have the multiple realms where most bomby plays in general will only affect one realm, and you can just pivot away from making that realm necessary to win. I feel like those two things in tandem really make a game where a sideboard is way less necessary than almost any other card game I've played.
Yeah, that's a great observation.
And I didn't want to go off on a tangent, but that was the last video that I did for Wonders, and I went pretty in-depth on it talking about that stuff, because there was a lot of chatter in the community lately about sideboards over the last few weeks, and if they should happen, and if there should be best of 3. Obviously, this game is made to be the perfect length for best of 1. Best of 3 is kind of unrealistic. But yeah, that's sort of my observation, is the game is set up from the ground level, designed in a way to succeed as best of 1 without sideboard to the best of its ability, to the best it possibly can, because of those two things. So yeah, that's sort of how I feel about it. I didn't mean to go on a rabbit hole there. I meant to just focus on how excited I am about the competitive play tour starting up, but I think it was important to mention that. And I'm just really excited. I think a lot of people are, and I'm excited for people to see this game in action. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have formats confirmed yet for the SCG cons. Last I knew, we were definitely doing sealed in Orlando, and definitely doing constructed in Vegas for the championships, but nothing else was confirmed. What I've heard is hopefully there will be more than that. And if I was to speculate, I would say anyone watching this that doesn't know for sure, they should plan on bringing a constructed deck. Plan on having whatever's the best constructed deck you can put together with your collection. That's your most competitive deck. I would say plan on bringing it and having it in case there is definitely a possibility there could be constructed potentially at all of them. There is no confirmation of that. We don't know for sure. They're figuring that out. We know for sure this first one at Orlando will have sealed. But that's my speculation. I'm thinking bring your competitive constructed deck just in case, and hopefully over the next week or two we'll get final confirmation of what the formats are going to be and on what days. I'm sure there's going to be side events. Probably limited side events. I know the play boosters are coming at the perfect time that we're probably going to be able to have play boosters at Orlando, and I assume there will be a lot of limited side events with that. And I don't know about you, Brian, but I'm excited about that. I'm really excited.
Yeah. We'll have announcements coming up in the next couple of weeks, and if you're going to work on building a constructed deck, it's aim at the 1000 DBS point level. That's the one that we're looking to have the most tuned play.
For sure. I'm excited about the 1000 DBS format as a whole. I think that's probably going to end up being the primary competitive constructed format moving forward. That's my assumption, that's my guess on just how balanced it seems right now. And I'm really excited for it. So I can't wait to play both sealed, constructed whenever I get the chance. I can't wait to hook up with you in Orlando, Brian, and chat some more about everything that's going on. Maybe we'll have some more news about Set 2. Play boosters will be out by then, so maybe we can update you guys on where to find product and stuff like that. There's a lot happening, and I can't wait, and I have to wait, but I don't want to wait. I want it now.
Yeah. I often say the number one skill of a game designer is listening. So I'm trying to get out there as much as I can and watch people play with people, see what they have to say, hear their thoughts on it, and that helps us with our set 3, 4, 5 that we're going to work on. And I'm happy to sign cards too. I signed a lot of cards at Gen Con.
Absolutely. One last question for you before we end this. Another thing I brought up in my video about sideboards recently was how much I love the token deck and how the token deck can feel almost like a mini sideboard at times. For example, if there was a card in the game in like set 3 or 4 or something like that destroyed all plants, your dragon token deck might want to make a different kind of dragon token if they think they're up against that card, rather than making the blossom that's a dragon and a plant. And so in a way, your token deck can little by little start to feel like a sort of sideboardy, in that you can pivot to different tokens depending on what you think you might be up against. And I think the design space for that only gets bigger and bigger with each set. So I just want confirmation for you. Tokens, are token makers and new tokens coming in set 2?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's a nice little piece of the foundational design that the game supports, having a good variety of tokens in your token sideboard.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see how deep that well goes. I don't expect any huge leaps anytime soon in what the tokens can do. I'm expecting negligible little tiny baby steps in what you can get access to with the tokens. But either way, it's still interesting design space that I'm excited to see. I know you don't want to give any of that away yet, but I don't know. Maybe by the time we talk again, there might be some more information. So look forward to the future, guys. There's a lot on the horizon. Set 2's on the horizon. Play boosters are about to come out. The competitive play tour is about to start. This is go time right now for Wonders of the First. This is like the prime, like, get in on the ground floor, be a part of it, be a part of history, and become myth. I don't know.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
I appreciate you for being here, Brian. I can't wait to talk to you again in a month. I will see you at SCG CON Orlando, and thanks so much.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck text, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.